Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. This week, we have a very special guest. Her name is Tana, and she's had quite the journey through her life. I'm just going to leave it up to you to hear the rest. Without any further delay, here's my beautiful interview with Tana.
Hi, I have Tana here. How are you?
Hello, I'm so good. So excited to be here.
Yes, I can't wait to hear about your journey. So, where
Yes.
do we start? Why don't we start with you? Let's hear a little bit about you and your journey through your life.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll just catch you up like where I am right now, and then we can travel back in time a little bit if that
Sounds
works.
sounds amazing to me.
Okay, so I'm a mama of four amazing little rascals. I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 6 and a 5-year-old, and been married to my husband. We're going on 19 years this year. So excited. We're living in
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been crazy town, but so good. And he is my best friend. And I'm
That
a life and mindset coach. And let's see what else. And I'm living in California, but originally from Houston, Texas.
nice. So, what started your journey to be a life coach?
Okay, good question. So, okay, I'll this is where we'll go back in time. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my background and how it led me to where I am today. So I was adopted as a baby. So I do not know my birth family at all. And I was born into the White family. That was their last name. They had two sons, and they wanted a little girl, and they adopted me. And but it wasn't a good adoption. It didn't work out well. My mother physically abused me growing up from the age of 5 until I was 11. She just had a lot of anger issues, and she would just rage, and had grabbed me, thrown me into the walls, and yelled, I wish you were never born. I wish we never adopted you. And basically, I grew up in a very volatile home, and I don't remember them ever saying, I love you, or holding me. And so, that's trauma, but as a kid, that's like normal to me. I didn't know anything different. And when I was 11, my dad came in my room and said they were wanting to give me back to the adoption agency. And a friend of mine knew about the abuse, and her mom said, if you ever need a place to stay, you can come stay with us. And I told my dad, and he said, why don't you give them a call? And I did. And they said, okay. So that week, my parents packed all my things up. And even when I was still in the house, they had taken all of my pictures down off the wall. And they basically took my stuff to this new place and said, you're no longer part of the family. This is like a divorce. Don't contact your brothers. Don't contact us. And you need to really make this happen. And they described the separation, like we had a dog that bit people, and we had to give him away, and they were equating me to the dog,
Oh my
essentially.
God.
Yeah. So, and I was so, I was so afraid of my mom, and I just did whatever they said. Like, okay, I didn't question it. I wasn't like a fighter. I was more passive, like the fawn.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, whatever. Okay. And so now I'm in my second family, and it's a single mom with two girls. One is my friend, and thought this would be really fun. And then, wow, I had no idea what I was, going to experience. And I remember they had a mattress for me on the floor, like the pull out mattress. And I remember one night, like a rat crawled across me,
Oh my
and
God.
I couldn't take. You would never know this looking in the neighborhood we lived in, but just the house was just unkept, and I had to take showers into water, up to my calves because the water wouldn't drain, so it was like dirty water, and I couldn't wash clothes because there was like moldy clothes stuck in the washer.
Oh
So I
my
wore dirty clothes.
God.
Yeah, I wore dirty clothes for the first time to school, and I just remember like feeling just terrible. Like I wanted to get out of there, and I didn't grow up in a home. Our house was really clean growing up, and so I called my dad crying, begging him to come home, And he said, no, this is your new home now. You need to make it work. And he sent me a 5-page letter. This is before there's no internet. And he said, this is how you clean up. And I did. I did all those things. And while that was happening, another friend of mine, she knew my situation. Her parents did and said, you can come live with us, and told my dad. And then they talked, and basically I moved into this home. So now I'm in my third family. I think I've just turned 13, and I lived with this family for 4.5 years, and through middle school and half of high school. And my friend, she ended up getting kicked out of the house very early because she dated interracially. Her dad didn't like it. He kicked her door in and threw a TV at her.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, and I was like, I just at this time I'm like, this is when I started turning in, like, what's wrong with me? That everywhere I go, it's not working out. Like, there's anger, there's yelling, there's violence. I started thinking like maybe I'm the problem. Like, why am I going to all these hard places? And so now my friend leaves. So now I'm in this home with these people I don't know at all. And no one says, hey, call me mom, or call me so and so. And so I go to these family, holidays, Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I don't look like anyone. I have dark black hair, brown eyes, they're blonde, blue eyes. And it's pretty obvious I don't fit in. And it's just the weirdest thing, as a kid, no one sits down and talks to you about this. There were no hugs still, no physical connection, and just a lot of fear. And that's when I started crying out to God, whoever this God was, like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I just felt so alone. I felt so like I didn't belong. I didn't have anyone that was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And now I go into my fourth family. My 10th grade year, or 10th, 11th grade, is when I moved in with my family that I have now. Excuse me. And it was great. They were loving and they wanted me. They were fun. And it was the first time I felt just like safe and good and happy. And then this family, two years in, basically, like when I graduated high school, they ended up getting a divorce. And that 2 years was volatile. And I mean, I came home and saw my mom, quote unquote, my mom, under the bathroom, like curled up, crying and shaking because they had an argument. And again, I'm in a new volatile home. And long story short, they said, you have 2 weeks. They divorced and said, we're going to try to make this work, but we just want it to be us two and our daughter. So y'all need to figure it out. And so I ended up going to college, living on my own, working my way through college. And that's where I met my husband. And I didn't know, like, all this stuff that I've been through was trauma. I didn't know that I had a lot of abandonment and rejection and lack, some scarcity. And it wasn't until I got married when all this stuff came up.
Yeah, I
Like the
mean,
first,
I'm
yeah,
wondering, whenever you found your husband and he was finally, I'm guessing, somebody that showed you positive attention, how did that feel for you? Do you remember? Did you
yeah,
like jump onto it, or was it something that you kind of were a little taken back by and didn't know how to take it?
yeah, that's a good question. I think I was just kind of open, because here's what's weird. Even when all this stuff was happening at home, my home life, my school life was very different. Like, people would never have known what I was going through, because I think school is where I felt so loved and I felt accepted. I felt I got my belonging. And so I was thriving in school. I did so well. I was like captain of the volleyball team and basketball team. And I was, miss my high school. I was miss, Elsick High School. And I was prom queen. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It's like,
Yeah.
all this stuff. So when I met my husband, I was this outgoing, vivacious, fun person. And he had no idea, like most people didn't, what I had been through. And so, I felt like he was just a great guy. Like, which is kind of funny. Here's the one thing. I was attracted to him because he was steady.
Hmm.
He was nice. He was a little bit shy, kind, just steady. but he
Hmm.
wasn't overtly like affectionate, like loving, you know what I mean? Like he was loving, but not like overtly like huggy. And does that make sense?
Yeah,
Demonstrative.
I'm wondering if you just wouldn't have been able to handle something like that, being that your whole life it was never given to you, which absolutely shatters my heart. But normally, I feel like when people aren't giving that affection their whole life, it's kind of awkward to all of a sudden have that. Like, I feel like that's something you have to work your way up to get to after a whole life of just basically being rejected. I'd hate to say it like that. It's just so horrible. Like, your story
Mm.
just touches my heart in so many ways. It makes me want to travel back in time and just give you the biggest hugs all the time.
Oh, yeah. I think there was a part of me that did. I yearned for that affection and connection. And then I think, and I didn't know this then, but it was, I think I was attracted to someone who best at it at that time
Hmm.
because it was familiar. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
he was loving and he still is, and he was consistent. He felt safe to me. That's what I was attracted to.
Hmm.
And later on, we realized, okay, so he's a little bit more avoidant, and I'm more of an insecure attachment style. And so, of course, these two kind of connect sometimes. And so we had to go through our own, journey of learning how to connect, and that's like a whole nother story. But so we got married, and we have a really fun story. And we got married, and then 5 years later, we moved from Texas to California. I was in grad school, and when I finished school, we got pregnant, and I was excited and I was terrified. And I found out I was having a girl, and I was terrified. I was like, "Am I going to be able to take care of this girl? Like, and do I have the ability to connect and love
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
little human?" Like, because even my grown-up relationships with friends, I've always held people at an arm's length on
Hmm.
purpose, but I just know that as awareness because of my work that I do is it was a way that I kept myself safe. I was very loving to people, but I didn't let people love me. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah.
And so I had my daughter, and she was amazing. She is amazing. She's like, and I just think, God gave me like the best daughter in the world. She's just like her dad, just very calm and loving and spunky and fun. And I'm just so thankful that, our personalities meshed, and it just made it so much easier to
Hmm.
to be with her and love her. And but I will say the first part, when she was a baby was so challenging. I had some postpartum, I didn't know that, just like the baby blues.
Yeah.
And I remember like, she was at nursing and she was underweight, and I had so much milk. I had mastitis, and
Hmm.
I had heard about, not to let kids watch TV. And here, like, I'm parenting. I didn't have any support. I had no family and so alone. And I remember like at midnight, waking up to feed her. I was in the dark in the living room, just like, my head down. I could barely keep my eyes open, trying to feed her, and she wasn't sucking. And I was just in the dark. I didn't turn TV on or music because I was scared about TV, and I just didn't know what to do. And I remember putting her down, and then I had to pump both sides.
Hmm.
And I remember like I was so tired, and I went to go clean everything, and I accidentally like spilled the milk.
Oh my
And
God. That is like, even if you're an
uh
oversupplier, it like literally rips your heart out. I pumped with both of my kids for over a year. So
yes,
oh my God, girl. I know that
yes.
feeling. Oh.
Oh, I was like, wow. I was like crying, like I don't know what I'm doing. This is so hard. And then you have to like clean it all, and you're tired. And oh my gosh, it was just like, so it was just like day after day of that, like feeling isolated. And again, I didn't have a lot of friends, out here. And then we got pregnant again soon after. They're 15 months apart.
Hmm.
So I'm pregnant, and then I have this baby, and I'm isolated. I'm not working. I'm home a lot, and baby blues. So the first 2, 3 years was so lonely. And
Hmm.
I just felt like, what's wrong with, always questioning like, what's wrong with me? And, I would do my best. I would read to them. And I think I was overdoing it. Like as a mom, I would hear, do this, do that. And then I would just do it and overdo it. And one of the things I didn't do is allow myself to just rest and just be human.
Mm-hmm.
And like if I laid down on the couch, people are always like, make sure you rest when they're resting, and I just thought that was lazy. I made it I mean, I wouldn't think that of other people, but for me, because of my trauma, I was like, I'm not allowed to rest. Like, that's lazy. You don't
Yeah.
do that. You have to be a good mom, and good moms do this, and that. And that kind of put me in a cycle of just burnt out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
more pain.
Yep. I've been through it. I don't know if you had the time to listen to my first couple podcasts about my postpartum and mental breakdown, but I've been there. I mean, I've totally
Yes.
been there. It drove me absolutely insane. And it is like with you not knowing if this is part of your past situation or something that's
Mm-hmm.
normal, like that's difficult in itself, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I bet you were juggling back and forth at the time. Like, and I know, I don't know about for you, but whenever I had my postpartum slash baby blues slash postpartum anxiety, I
Mm-hmm.
would always think, I'm a horrible mother. Why did I do this to myself? Why can
Mm.
I not be like all the other moms? Like, I was beating myself up. I don't know if you had
Yes.
any of that going on as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just like, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a bad mom,
Mm-hmm.
and then the guilt, there's like some guilt and shame around, like I would just question, do I love my kids? Like, is this
Yeah.
love? Is this right?
Mm-hmm.
And shame about like I remember like I could not wait for my husband. I just felt trapped. Honestly, that's how I felt. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get away from the kids. And I felt like I needed to get away and I couldn't. And it was this like it was this back and forth like I'm here, but I don't want to be here, but I want to be here and I'm I'm exhausted. I'm dead,
Yeah.
and I couldn't wait till my husband came home and because here's what happened. I was always entertaining them. I was, when they were young toddlers, I would get on Pinterest and I would find all these fun things to do with kids because I didn't know what to do and I didn't like to watch like a lot of TV and we didn't, and so I was just over performing as a mom
Yeah.
because I wanted to do better and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what was enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I created some of that too. And we thought we were done because we had a boy and a girl. And as they got older, and here's the other thing too. I started homeschooling them because I love the idea of being connected with them, taking them outside, learning about science, by just seeing, because we live in Northern California. It's like beautiful up here.
Yeah.
And, but and here I am, I'm such an extrovert and I was living very introverted and that brings my energy down. So it's not just physically, but it's the emotional, the just normal like life-giving energy.
Yeah.
Just always I felt like I was always on, like, when the battery's like flickering, like,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be charged, like that's how I felt like I was operating.
Yeah.
And then when I would be with people, my batteries would go back up and then they'd go back down, when I was
Mm-hmm.
alone and isolated. So then we ended up having two more kids, two more boys. So, and there was a part of me like, why are we done? Why do we think we're done? And we had friends that were starting to have three. And so we did it. And then we had the third one and we're like, he needs a playmate. And we had our fourth. And and I'm so glad we did because they're like best friends and amazing.
So sweet.
And yeah, and so I'll just say this whole journey. So when my number three came, and that's when I decided, you know what? Like, one, I hired my own coach. That's what really helped me. And I would cry like all the time on the calls. And she happened to be like, in her past, was a like a child educator or something. And she looked at me one day and she's like, listen, I don't think this homeschooling is working out for you. Like, she just said it, and it was the first time that anybody just affirmed, like, maybe this isn't a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And I knew it, but I felt so much guilt and shame instead of like living from like what's good for me. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, what's good for me too? Like, I just wasn't in the picture. Like, my needs, my wants, like sleep, rest, like being with friends, creating that, like, none of that was on the table. I was only just living from a place of, okay, fear, guilt, what's best for them. I was just so mean to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I would say, not to keep bringing up your past, but you didn't have a lot of people that were supportive in your life at a very young age. And
Mm-hmm.
so I almost feel like you were probably trying to overcompensate for that in your children, because you were like,
Yes.
I definitely cannot be like this. Like, I need to make sure
Yes.
I take every option that I have and just be close to them and let them know how much I love them at every moment of their life. And then you forget about yourself in that. I mean, even people that don't have the traumatic past forget about themselves all the time in that. So, with that
Yes.
happening in the back of your head, because we all know that you might be able to hide from everything in your 20s, 30s, whatever, once you have kids, it all comes creeping back. Like, I don't know
Ooh.
about you, but
Yes.
it hit me like a brick wall, like a brick wall. And I was like,
Yes.
wow, like I thought I had this amazing middle class childhood, like, and then you start to see holes in it. And it's not like my parents weren't bad parents at all. They were
Mm-hmm.
parenting the way you parented back in the 80s and 90s, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's so different. So those
Mm-hmm.
differences on top of all of that crap that you never got is enough to drive somebody insane,
Yes.
honestly. You're
Yeah.
doing great with all of this.
Yes. And I think you nailed it. I was overcompensating, right? And that's it. Because I was like, I was living from a place of, I don't want to be my mom. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want them to feel not loved, all the things. And that it, it was tearing me up. Yeah. And, yeah. And so with this coach, when I finally let go and I put my kids in school, it was like, oh, it was amazing. I was like, what? Wait, what? It's like Technicolor. I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never felt so good. And then I realized again, I was like, oh, I like this. I was like, oh, it's not them, it's not me, it's not that I don't love them. It's like I needed a break. That's
Yeah.
it. I just needed a break. And then, of course, here's the thing: I was pregnant again, and I was like, I felt like we finally got the kids. I was out of the trenches. I feel like
Mhm.
when we're at 4 or 5, we're out of the trenches.
Yeah.
And then we went right back to the trenches with
Yep.
2 more babies. But I was like, now I'm onto myself. Like now I've had coaching and I became a coach because I realized, I had also started therapy. I've been in therapy for years, like healing my trauma because I knew it was coming up. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot here. And I wanted to be a cycle breaker. I
Mhm.
really see myself as like a huge, like rock. If you see like a stream, like a lake,
Mhm.
you know, um, like a stream like going down like really fast bubbling down, and I see myself as kind of like a boulder, like a rock in the stream, and I'm facing down and the water is hitting my back, and it's like
Mhm.
it stops with me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to let this, let the abuse, let all that like come into the next generation. And so I think that's like a double, it makes it a little extra hard, right? Because I want to be the one that says it stops with me,
Yeah.
but then also I still have to function in today and in a place that I'm not familiar with. Like I wasn't modeled, cuddling and affection and the smiling and like all just the ways you just be, what a great mom would do, or just a mom in general, not even a
Mhm.
great mom, just like I knew what I didn't want, and that was really clear. But then it was like, well, what kind of mom? What do I want? And that was the empty bucket for me. Like, well, I just know I want to be loving, but like, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? And so that's kind of been my journey, and it still is my journey today. Is because I think right now we're like internet. It's like crazy, and there's so many opinions on what a good mom. If you're like organic, or if you buy your, or if you formula, like it's like you're
Mhm.
good, you can't win. And
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, as a coach, I'm so passionate because what I do with people is I say, you get to decide, like, what's important for you. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. And I think sometimes there is a trap, because it's like, even out here where I live, there's some stigma around, you know, medicine or shots or this or that. And it's like, I can see it in moms that they're scared to say this, or they're ashamed. And it's like, no, I don't want to live like that anymore. It's,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want other women it's to live like that. It's like, we have to do what's best for us and our family. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I feel like, especially if moms, and I didn't know this back then, if I could go back and tell myself, I would tell myself, like, it is not selfish to take care of yourself. Like, it is not, like, laying down is so nourishing. Like, you need it, and they need that for you, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And even just like going out with friends, is all the things that I made bad, watching TV, like, it's not bad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it all works out in the end. It really truly does. And what they need is, they just need a mom that's nourished, a mom that her batteries are up and charged, and love. That's it, and the quality time, and all of that's negotiable, and they just, you know, that's it. So I'm so thankful for, like, just the work, and that's why I became a coach, is I want to help set other people free, because I've been set free from so much pain and so much pressure, and, like, beating myself up all the time, to now it's like loving and accepting, and especially even my mistakes, and being like, that's okay, I'm just human, and I'm in such a different place now, and that's just what I want for other people too, other mamas, to know, like, you know like, literally, like, our cup does need to be filled, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
even you're at the stage where you've got, like, three littles, and it is physically taxing, and finding ways that you can get a break, where, and this, can I tell you one more thing? I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm going off. Can I tell you, like, the number one thing, if I could give advice to any mom, especially of youngsters, it's learning, like, nervous system work. And what I mean by that is, like, how they talk about the kettle that
Mm-hmm.
starts to boil,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can feel it as a mom. When you start getting irritated, it starts to
Yeah.
bubble. And then
Yeah.
you're like, and then this, like, some kid, does this, and you're like, okay, but you're holding it in, and then
Mm-hmm.
it, like, builds and builds, and then you pop, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it would be like, I would pop, I would yell, it would be like one little thing, right? And you rage. But there are ways that we can catch it before we get to that boiling pot. And that has been the greatest gift that I've given myself and my kids, is learning, like, how do I basically let the steam out before it builds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, it's called somatic work. And it's basically, just small little exercise of, like, learning how to breathe, and, like, you, like, there's one. Do you want me to tell you one right now?
Yeah, go ahead. I've done a lot of this work with my
Oh,
psychologist and everything, but please share for everybody else. Also, I have two kids.
I love it. I love it. Well, okay, I'll just tell one, just because it's super easy, and,
Mm-hmm.
like, I've literally been doing it, you don't have to go away and do this for 20 minutes. It's literally seconds. But you purse your lips together like you're going to give a kiss, and you just blow out slowly, and you make a sound. So it's like, and that vibration, it calms the vagus nerve, and
Mm-hmm.
it calms, and then the blowing out is like the breathing, and it literally just calms your body just within seconds, and it releases that tension, releases that stress. And my kids see me do it all the time. They know what I'm doing, and I'm also modeling to them, and it has been a game changer,
Yeah.
because I'm not holding in stress all the time
Yeah.
and blowing up.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah.
That's one I haven't heard of, because I know a ton of breathing techniques through I do meditation, and I'm into, all the spiritual stuff. So I have all these different tools that I've had over the years that I've collected, meditation and yoga being two of the major tools that I've done. And there's a lot of breath work that can go with meditation, but that is one that I have not done.
Mm,
We used to do that in yoga classes, but I've never
Mm.
actually just done it on my own. So thank you for that. I needed to hear it.
Yes, yes. Try it today. Like if you find yourself getting a little agitated, a little irritated, be like, ooh, blow it out. And
Yeah,
it's,
it
ooh,
helps the little kids too. I remember I was teaching my son. There's a something that my psychologist taught me. It's sniff the flowers, blow out the candles for little kids. So
yes.
when they're getting anxious, like you do it
Mm,
when they're not anxious, right? Just for fun. So as you build and they get more and more familiar with it, they start to do that, which is having them, it's breath work for them, right?
so good.
So they
Yes.
calm down a little. And that's something that I definitely do with my son. My daughter's still a little too young to understand that. But yeah,
That's
for
so
sure.
good.
For
I
sure.
love that. I
Start it
love that.
young. Start it young because I
Yes.
just know like I have a history of depression and anxiety in my family. My mother had it
Mm,
all over my mother's side. Everybody's on
mm-hmm.
medication. Like it's just a thing, you
Yeah.
know? So I'm trying to get ahead of it by already teaching them breathing techniques and that it's okay to feel certain ways and to
Ooh.
talk to me about it because even if it's little things, like my son gets upset at my husband because he won't give him chocolate at 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay, well, why are you mad? Daddy didn't give me chocolate. Okay, well, we can have it in the morning, like I know you love chocolate, like just validating. And he's
yes.
3.5.
Yes.
So that's like my part, like all the craziness of not watching TV and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, do what you have to do to survive,
Yes.
like
Yes.
especially with
Yes.
toddlers.
Amen.
And but as far as the emotional things, I feel like that's where my childhood lacked a little bit. And like I said,
Mm,
no fault of my parents. I don't
mm-hmm.
blame them at all. They were both working parents and
Mm-hmm.
they did everything they could. They were amazing. But emotionally, I don't think I was prepared for a lot of like adult things in life. So that's super
Mm,
important for me. And I have a
mm-hmm.
question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What techniques have you learned to deal with your past traumas?
Mm.
Would you mind sharing a couple of those?
What techniques?
Yeah, like was it something that you, like for instance, I did meditation and did inner child meditations that helped
Mm.
me a lot. So I did that, like, and it's odd what comes up in those meditations, like stuff I wouldn't think of, but afterwards, when I put the pieces together, it makes so much sense.
Mm.
And I've
Okay.
described these in other podcasts before, but I started with that. Well, now I'm reading this book called The Power of Now. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yes. Is that who's the author? Is that
Eckhart Tolle, I think is his name, Eckhart
oh,
Tolle,
oh, yes.
or
Yeah.
however you say it.
Yeah,
And
Eckhart Tolle.
it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of teaching me the opposite. So what I'm trying to do for myself in dealing with stuff that happened in the past that's crept up in my future is I do the childhood meditations, I recognize it, and then I try to let it go. And when it pops up in my anxiety, or if, something happens with my kid and I'm thinking about it, I will recognize it, understand that that's what it's from, and then
Mm.
try to move into the now again. What's happening now? Like ground my body, ground
Yes.
what I can, because I don't know if yours caused anxiety or not, but I know that's probably something that was lingering.
It's so
What do you have
bad. Yeah.
any tools or any advice for,
Oh yeah.
women that have gone through similar situations than you or had just had a hard childhood and kind of some steps that you took yourself to be where
Yes.
you're at today?
100%. I'll tell you, it's a kind of a like a little handful, but I'll obviously the first one's therapy. It's just good to talk it out and have someone there to witness and cry. The other thing that has been really powerful is changing my story because here it is. Like I can tell my story over and over and it's the same painful story, right? And our thoughts matter. Our thoughts create things, right? So it's a mindset. So if I see myself as a victim, I will continue to live that out as a victim. So I don't see myself. I mean that story is painful and it's true, what I went through, but there's also some really lovely, wonderful things that like the whole school side, right?
Mm-hmm.
All, where people were kind and, loving and, right? So I think also getting myself out of that painful story and seeing like all the gifts, I went back treasure hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then mindset is huge because how we think creates how we feel, and how we feel drives how we show up in the world, and how we show up creates our life, right? And so I that's what I do as a coach. I do a lot of like mindset work and the story. And so, it's kind of like this. Like if you wake up and you think, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be such a hard day." It's like our brain will go to work to find why it's going to be so hard.
Yeah.
And we will create a hard day.
Yeah.
And I'm so aware of that. So, I am very intentional about how I want to think. I think on purpose. Even if I don't see the evidence, like I choose to see miracles everywhere I look. I choose to see how gifts all around me, and the other one is the somatic work is huge, especially for trauma, because the body keeps the score. So, like, my mindset, I can change how I think, but here it is. This is a big but my body will not get on board if it doesn't feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a huge part of my work has been like creating internal safety for myself. Instead of looking for other people, instead of looking to change my circumstances to feel safe, I had to learn to take care of myself, like lay on the couch when I needed a rest, like nourish myself and allow myself to process a lot of the feelings and pain. And that's the somatic work. And the last thing I would say, which I highly, highly recommend for everybody, it's called internal family systems. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh my gosh, it is so good. Okay, I'll just give you like a little thing. Like I kind of had a pattern of, and I found this with my business that I would go into pity, like feeling sorry for myself. I'd be like, this is so hard, and life is so hard, and I don't know what to do, and no, 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 and it kind of felt like whiny, and I realized I was thinking like that's just me. Like, why do I go back to this like pity sometimes? And I would be so mad about it. And what I realized is it's a part of me. Like we all have parts inside of our who we are. So it's like I'm not pity. It's like there's a part of me, and this pity part, I call it pity, was trying to keep me safe.
Mm-hmm.
It was trying to keep me down, like don't go out and outside of your comfort zone. Don't go out and do that because you could get hurt. And so
Mm-hmm.
that pity was so strong of like, this is so hard. I can't do this. Like, I don't know. It was keeping me helpless and powerless so that it would keep me stuck. So I wouldn't have to go out. And when I realized that, I could look at it and say, okay, what do you need? Like, first of all, what are you trying to do for me? And I realized, well, it was like, I want you to be safe. I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want you to get hurt. And then I was like, well, what do you need? And it needed love. It needed
Mm-hmm.
some compassion, and it needed a strong leader. And so I was able to look at that part of me that was afraid and was like, listen, it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right. Like, I understand that, you feel scared, and we don't need to be afraid. Like, I can handle this. And so I kind of see like as a little bus, and I would put that little part of me that was afraid, in the back of the bus or in the middle. I would buckle it up, and I would give it, a little blanket, and, take care of it and say, you're going to be okay. You can ride with us, but the leader,
Yeah.
I'm driving this bus. And then
Mm-hmm.
I could step into my power. And so we have all these like little parts, and instead of making, I think I used to, this is like kind of a way of teasing them apart from like who I really am. Instead of saying, oh gosh, I'm just a depressed person. I'm just a this person. It's like, no, like there's a part of me that feels depressed. There's a part of me that feels scared. There's a part of me that feels really powerful. Part of me that feels really sad. And it's like when I can be with them and see them and give them what they need, I don't have to take on that identity. Does that make sense?
Yep. It makes a
You know,
lot of sense.
yeah. And it's so powerful because I used to have it all mixed up and meshed up, and, and as we think, so we are, right?
Yeah. And I think it takes a lot of hard work to get there, because I
Yes.
know I've been trying
Yes.
for a long time. I've been working on myself, especially after my mental breakdown last year. Like it was a like I was almost hospitalized mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working on myself a lot, and it's constant work, but it
It
feels
is.
good. It always feels
Yes.
good. And,
Mm,
sometimes I have setbacks. Like one of my triggers was my son got the stomach flu, and
mm,
I could go into, there's a whole story why on another podcast. I don't know if
mm-hmm,
that was on my mental breakdown one or what, but something happened in my past that had to deal with, throwing up. Like, just
mm,
real quick rundown. My mom was sick when I was younger. I never wanted to leave her side. So I would go to school and make myself throw up. So my son got the stomach flu. I already had postpartum
mm,
depression, postpartum anxiety, depression and anxiety, and PMDD. And so that's kind of what exploded. My son had the stomach flu, and I was so horrified. Like, my whole body shut down. So the other day, when you
mm,
said physically you can't control it, I know what you're talking about, because I tell myself all the time whenever I'm in the situations where maybe he's getting sick. I'm like, you'll be fine, Jackie. The worst that's going to happen, we all get sick. Okay, we move on.
mm,
It is fine.
mm-hmm,
Like, I know it sucks, but
mm-hmm.
we make it through it. The other day, I thought he was going to get sick, and I'm fine. I literally felt heat travel up through my body. It was a
Yes.
physical reaction. And I was like,
Ooh.
how do I stop this? Like, I need to be the mother. Like, that's one of my goals, is the mother that is there for her children in those situations and is not freaking out
Mm,
on the side. And it's not even something that I'm like, ooh, it's gross. Like, none of
mm-hmm,
that. It literally triggers something inside of me.
mm,
And so my work has been partially, I mean, there's a lot of other crap that I'm dealing with, but on that end, I've been trying to, make it as normal as I can. And it was very shocking to me the other day when my body reacted like that. I was
yes.
like, oh my God, I definitely have more work on this. I definitely have more work on this. So I get it when you
Yes.
say, like, physically, like, that's a whole other ball game.
It is physically, yeah. And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it
Hmm.
explains a lot of what is happening in our bodies. Because yeah, if we can say all the things, but our body, and I kind of love it. Actually, our body is our truth tellers. Like our body is saying, like really telling like you what's up. You know,
Yeah.
and if our body is tense, it's like, okay, something's here. And I think that's where it's like, okay, we don't have to make it bad or wrong. It's like, huh, okay, like, yeah, what is this? What's going on? And like following the body, like what does the body need? Like that heat. Do you need to release some of that energy? Like, does your body want to like growl like a tiger, or do you need to like,
Hmm.
or does your body need to like curl up for a second and like lay down and just like you move that energy out, you know? And I
Hmm.
think where we can really get to that place is when a lot of that healing, because what happens, like you said, like when we're in those moments of trauma and we weren't allowed to cry, or we weren't allowed to run, or we weren't
Hmm.
allowed to, that that tension, that stress gets stuck in our bodies, and it will come up. And it's not about like pushing, and I think a lot of us aren't taught like how to process that. And so we push it down, or we avoid by drinking or over watching TV and stuff, whatever, to feel better. But those stressors are still there, and they need our attention. And I
Hmm.
think when we can learn how to give it compassionate attention, boom, it's a game changer. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I try
so
to
good.
look at it as like teaching my kids. Like, if
Yeah.
he gets sick, I don't want him to see me freak out and then he ends up getting something. You know what I mean? Like, he ends
Yes.
up getting scared because of it, and then
Yes.
it's a problem for him his whole life. So, yeah, I've been working on it. Oh my God, you have so much wisdom, and you are such an inspiration. Your
Mm,
story is so heartfelt, and
mm,
where you're at now and where you came from, you're amazing. I hope you
mm,
realize that you are an amazing story. That would
mm,
break most people. That would shatter most people. And look at you. You're helping other people. You have such a positive outlook on everything. It is truly inspirational to have had you on here talking about
mm.
all of this stuff.
Thank you. You know, it's been a journey, and I'm so, as hard as it has been, I just appreciate everything. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to share the story. And I really do hope people are encouraged by it. And even if it's just a little gem here and there, to know that, they're not alone. And, this motherhood thing, man, it ain't for the light, what is it? The faint heart, or I
Yeah,
don't
the
know,
faint of heart.
faint of
Yeah.
heart. But it's worth it. And I do feel like it's sanctifying, right? Like it brings up
Hmm.
all of our stuff. And I feel like we get to decide, like, do we want to live and beat ourselves up because of all the stuff it brings up, or can we see it as just an opportunity to grow and heal, and and learn to love and to break cycles, and
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, do you do online work too? Like, will you see people over Zoom, or are you just a coach that sees people face to face?
Yes, I most all my clients I see on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
So all over. Yep.
And what
Hmm.
is your company called?
It's Tana Inskeep Coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want
And
to spell that out right now so
oh,
people
sure.
can?
Yeah. It's Tana, Tana. My last name is Inskeep, Inskeep, as in pickle, coaching, Tana Inskeep. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. And on Instagram, I share a lot of videos, a lot of nuggets, and I just want to help people and just get people free. And I think the biggest thing is growing their self leadership instead of always looking outside of them for answers like, what should I do? I don't know what to do. Or kind of that helpless, powerless victim is how I felt, right?
Mhm.
It's like I want to help people learn to be self leaders, to take responsibility for how they're showing up and deciding what they want to create in their life. Like they can literally create anything they want. And I love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I will
Yeah.
definitely put the link
Okay.
in the description of this podcast. And I will also write out your Instagram so people can find you there.
Oh, thank
And
you.
thank you so much for being a
You're
part
so
of this.
welcome.
Thank you
Oh,
so
you're so
much. You're
welcome.
so inspirational. Like
Oh.
when you first told me your story, it just pulled at my heartstrings so much. Like I said, I just wanted to be the time traveler and travel back
Mm.
and just be the random woman that's like, you're gonna be okay,
Oh.
sweetheart. You have
Mm.
love. You're gonna find love in the world. Like it just, it really spoke to me. And my goodness, are you a strong, strong woman? You are, like I
Mm.
said, I can't say it enough. You're such an inspiration. Thank you so much
Mm.
for being on here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was my pleasure. Such an honor. Thank you.
Hmm.
Wow. That was incredible. Am I right? What an amazing spirited person. She went through hell as a younger child and she kept winning. There are so many things in this particular episode that I learned, and she's just such an incredible person. The strength that this woman has is absolutely insane. And I just envy how she can heal. Like she healed. It really feels like she healed from so many things. And as you know, I'm on my healing process. So I feel like I had a lot to learn from her. And she was, as you could hear, such a bright presence. And thank you again, Tana. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. I am putting her Instagram in the description. I believe you can get to her website and everything from there. If not, I will put her website in the description as well. Everybody go follow Tana. Thank you so much for listening. Go follow me. I am on Instagram. I am on TikTok. I am on Facebook. I have a group and I'm a person, I guess. I'm trying to get it made as a professional page, but I'm just a person, the Mama Jack. The whole way through the Mama Jack, the Mama Jack, the Mama Jack. Please subscribe. Please rate me. That means everything to me. Let me know what you think. Let me know how I'm doing. If you have any ideas for upcoming shows, again, message me, comment somewhere. I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for listening today.